Hello and welcome back, everyone. At Sanctuaries of Learning, we care deeply about students being given opportunities to think deeply and actively, to be curious and to question the world around them. We believe that great teaching does more than just deliver content. It ignites our students' minds and helps them make sense of the world. In schools, effective questioning is such a powerful tool to connect with our children, to challenge their thinking and tailor learning to their unique needs. Teachers and leaders have often approached me to explore how they can enhance questioning across key learning areas as part of their school's focus on explicit teaching. From my experience, making small tweaks to our questioning is one of the most impactful ways we can differentiate our lessons without adding to our already busy workloads. John Purchase Public School has truly embedded this philosophy. They've been dedicated to fostering a school-wide culture of thinking, ensuring all students experience more rigorous learning opportunities. Their commitment is clear in their innovative classroom approaches. And I'm so excited to speak with Irene Robbins and Kate Scholes from John Purchase Public School today, who will share their school's journey with questioning. So Irene Robbins is a relieving deputy principal at John Purchase. She brings over 30 years of experience in education across diverse school contexts in both Australia and Scotland. Driven by a strong moral purpose, underpinned by integrity, dedication, and passion, she is committed to staying curious and inspiring others. A strong advocate for authentic collaboration, she values the power of coaching to support growth and empower those around her. Welcome, Irene.
Thank you so much, Steffi. It's wonderful to be here. And yeah, what a great opportunity to chat today with you and Kate.
And we have Kate Scholes, who's the Assistant Principal, Curriculum and Instruction at John Purchase Public. She is a dedicated and passionate advocate for teaching and learning, working closely with beginning teachers and assistant principals to elevate their educational practices. With a love for delivering whole school professional learning and engaging in team teaching, she actively seeks opportunities to collaborate within classrooms. A true people person, Kate is committed to supporting all students and teachers on their journeys to improve and succeed. Welcome, Kate.
Hi, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I do have a bias towards these ladies as I worked with them at John Purchase Public School. So I really, have chosen them in particular because I believe in what they do and what they stand for. And I can't wait to learn more about what's been happening over the past couple of years in terms of questioning. So, Irene, I'd like to ask you first. John Purchase has clearly worked to foster a school-wide culture of thinking to ensure that students experience more rigorous learning. From your perspective, how does effective questioning for differentiation contribute to building this kind of rich primary learning environment? And what common misconceptions about effective questioning do teachers often hold that we should address?
Great and great question, Steffi. I'll hold some of those key words in my mind just now. Well, firstly, thank you. And it's just such an honour to be part of the John Purchase Public School teaching and learning community. And there is a really strong focus on how we can work together, collaborate and do better. And so part of our vision and school plan is really about empowering our learners for today and to be able to manage the dynamic, world out there and the complex society that they will be part of. So in terms of my perspective, how does effective questioning for differentiation contribute to building this rich learning environment? It's really about making sure that we have very effective questioning, and it's really crucial to differentiation as it encourages our students to engage in their own learning and different levels of understanding. So it's important to make sure that we keep that open mind, and by being very intentional and purposeful in the types of questions we are asking, that we're able to meet the needs of all students in every lesson, and that they can access that learning to help, not just surface level questions and answering general knowledge type of thing. Yes, sure, there's you can have those questions that are looking for prior knowledge, where you dig deep just on that surface level, the review type questions. But we're really looking at those generative, constructive, facilitative questions that are going to help our students engage in dialogue with others, their peers, and with their teachers, to hone in and have that deeper level of thinking. I guess, as we've all probably heard, that zone of proximal development, and also knowing that, what works best, having those high expectations that every student deserves this opportunity to be able to dig deeper and grow their learning, exponentially, really. And the research out there shows that there is a really positive, high impact. I think I saw somewhere there was 32% that effective questioning had that high impact on growth in learning for the students. So very, very important for us to really get that right. And I guess part of our journey, and through part of our a spiral of inquiry, is that we've looked at what was happening and started to think about what might we need to do next. In terms of common misconceptions about effective questioning, there are a couple of things, coming about. Some people might think, oh, well, yeah, I'm asking a variety of questions right now, so I must be being effective, because I'm not just asking the same question over and over again. But it's really drilling down into the differences between those review, procedural, generative, constructive, facilitative questions. And those generative, constructive, and facilitative ones really open up the avenues for students to dig deeper. So it's knowing that that's not just about asking a whole variety of questions. So that's one misconception. Not all, some people think, maybe all the questions are of equal sort of worth or value, that you're going to get the most out of it. But I think by what I've just mentioned, that's a real scaffold of questions there, of those that really can get the students to ponder, that they're curious, and that they want to ask more, and they've got that, that burn, that inspiring. I mean, our education week's coming up, and it's in what is it? Ignite your potential. So it's about really igniting that curiosity and wanting to dig deeper, not just, oh, I need to learn this information, I'm going to gain this information for a test, and then, here I'll just present that. It's about really having a really deeper, more purposeful, intentional process to engaging the students and helping them along the way. So yeah, that's some of the the ideas that I have when thinking about those questions. I did touch on just that assessment versus exploration. So it's not just about asking a question to gain knowledge, but really about exploring ideas and where could that take you. And I guess sometimes it's really about trusting ourselves as practitioners, trusting our working together as colleagues, and designing lessons or learning trajectories that could open up, bring those questions in and open up where is that going to take us. But we may not know yet, because it's about asking those questions and then seeing where that learning journey takes us and our students in our care. So yeah.
Thanks, Lorraine.
That's okay.
Your insights have
Expand on any more of that?
I think listening to you, like, I can hear clearly that you care deeply about, how your students respond, and how inspiring that curiosity within your students' minds. And I have been privileged to be witness to that in your classroom, as I've heard you question your students, and you do plan your questions with such intentionality. I love how open you are to where it takes you and your students. I think it was a kindergarten classroom. You were asking questions around a book they were reading about the bear.
Yeah, the bear
Or
ate
the
the sandwich.
sandwich.
I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, everything you're speaking about, I just love that you're really focusing on the impact on the students,
Mm,
and that purpose behind why am I asking these questions in the first place? Not just because I know there's different types or because it's just on the program.
mm,
Really thinking about what is it that we want to see for our students. And I can hear that clearly in your thinking. So thank you.
yeah. Welcome.
Kate, you work closely with teachers in classrooms. That's definitely your strength. Teachers are more than happy for you to be in their rooms with them. What are some of the most impactful, student-friendly, like questioning techniques you coach them on to deepen understanding for varied learners within that culture of thinking?
Yeah. I think it started at a school level. I think we did a lot of work around the typology of questions. So that came from Ron Rickard's book around building a culture of thinking within our classrooms. So the five were facilitative, constructive, generative, procedural, and review questions. So I think it all started at a school level. So it started with like, okay, what are these types of questions? What are they? How many? What are we using? What are our main ones? So we did have some PL around that. So that kind of got us all on the same base as a staff and as a I guess a cohort to kind of really learn together as to where we kind of sit within that. So then from there, each kind of stage or each teacher kind of adapted it differently. I know each AP went through their programs, especially with like the other KLAs of like science, HSIE, PDH, and we would then had time in stage meetings to then create generative questions around a unit. So thinking of like science. So I know in a stage two classroom, they had living world and the environment, and that was their topic. And for each unit or each kind of subject, they in the program they had the big generative overarching question within that. So then that was kind of the question that they came back to. And off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure it was like, how are the environments and the living world interdependent or interconnected? And it was like the branch that kind of pulled it all in. And I worked with a teacher where I saw her ask this question at the start of the unit. So it was very simple. And she got the kids feedback. Oh, what do you think about this? And it was like brainstorming. And it was almost like the pre-assessment to be like, what's their prior knowledge? So then you can kind of use that formative assessment. All right, they're really good at this. I know this, they don't know that. So it's good for that formative assessment there. And then I saw them then go back at the end of each, maybe a week. Okay, let's kind of reflect on this question. Where are we at with this one? Oh, we've learnt just about like the dolphins. Okay, if the dolphins weren't in our food chain, how would that affect everything else? And then so again, it was the involving the students within the question as well, that big overarching question. And I saw it really kind of get students in with engagement, as well as like I said, that great formative assessment tool to kind of that check-in base to be like, okay, where are they at? Where are they at? Where do we need to go next? So that was really powerful. I have also then kind of seen that progress in a different stage class, where the students were asking the question. So they've done this pre and post or within the middle. Okay, here's our topic. What questions do you have around that? So again, you're getting that student interest, that buy-in, to try and get that involvement, I guess, and really kind of pitch the lessons to where they want to take it. And you have some fascinating questions that come out of it. And you sometimes your lessons take a turn which you weren't expecting, which is always fun, the beauty of it. But again, it's been driven from the students. So that's just one way we kind of looked at questioning within our programs. I know we also kind of allocated time and within like stage planning time, teachers work together to plan and embed those questions within our programs. So it was almost like checkpoints throughout to make sure that we had those overarching questions and they weren't just like procedural or review questions. Because we're big believers of like those big, deep questions sometimes are really hard to just come up with off the top of your head. So it's really important to kind of have them planned and programmed and thought out prior. So having time to co-plan and work with another teacher to embed them within the program. So that was another thing we did. Um, Things like, I guess when it came around to discussions, so if a teacher was to ask the question, another thing we noticed within the classrooms and through just lesson observations or team teaching opportunities, we noticed then sometimes teachers would say a question but then not give um, accept like a really simple answer. So it's like, okay, so if you've just planned all of these deep questions, but then you're going, oh, yeah, that's right, well done, and moving on and quickly, you're not actually getting that facilitation around the discussion that you're really trying to get. So another thing we kind of aspect we looked at was like talk moves. And so actually the responding to questions as well. So like talk moves in terms of like revoicing what students' opinions, getting the reasoning behind it, the justifications, and really trying to pull out what the student responses were. So we're not just accepting, yep, good answer, okay, move on. We're actually, I guess, getting the time and the correct response to warrant that discussion, I think. And I get around the talk moves, like a really good thing I saw in a stage one class was the ABC. So this is like a thinking routine where a part of the discussion A is so someone would give an answer and then in the discussion A would be, and they had little actions for it as well. They had A for I want to add on to that. So maybe it was like an add on. And then B was build. So I'm going to build onto what Sandra said. And C is actually I'm going to challenge that. And so within the discussions, they had the ABC and it was them challenging, discussing, evaluating, and reflecting on the conversation. So that really elevated our classroom discussions in responding to those questions and really kind of, we had really powerful discussions around it. So that was really good. I also saw it was in a stage 3 classroom, the Socratic circles, or sometimes people call them like leaderless discussions or teacherless discussion or student-led discussions where there was 2 circles, so an inside circle and an outside circle. And the teacher would start them off on the conversation, but then the students were in charge of where the conversation went, and they were the ones that were posing questions to each other, or they had to kind of give a response, and so they were the ones that were dictating where the discussion went. Obviously, then if it went too off on a tangent, the teacher would then pull them back in and bring it back. And what the purpose of the outside circle was is they were monitoring how many times the group in the middle were asking questions, how many times they responded to a question, how many times they saw them fiddle or fidget with something. So they were monitoring like the effectiveness of the discussion around it. So, and then at the end, they gave them the peer feedback. Oh, I noticed that you made eye contact when you were talking with this. And so there was like a checklist with that. So that was really powerful around discussions and questioning with that. So that was another thing I saw in a stage 3 classroom. I think overall, in terms of, I'm just going back to the question in terms of working closely with teachers in the classroom, what are some of the most impactful and student-friendly questioning techniques you coach or deepen understanding? I think the biggest thing that made us have the impact was time to reflect as well from the teacher perspective. So whether you have a teacher, a colleague in your classroom with you, whether it be me, but really kind of stopping and reflecting and going, hang on a minute, what worked here, what didn't work? And it was that debrief phase where we could give that feedback and the willingness to be open to take on that feedback or stop and reflect and change things for the next lesson. I think that's probably the most powerful thing, to be able to have that time to really sit back and go, that worked well, that didn't work. What can we do from there? But yeah, overall, I think having the teachers on board and willing to have the open classrooms, whether it be with someone, a colleague with team teaching, I think that's a really big, powerful start to be able to encourage that whole culture of questioning and that culture of thinking across all the classrooms.
Well, there's so much to celebrate there, Kate. The fact that I know you are so visible and so welcomed into classrooms, even working with you, which was such a joy. Uh, I can hear so many things there. Things like the school-wide approach and system support for the time to reflect and debrief. I think if
Yep.
schools want to start with questioning based on your journey, that is where we need to start. We need to be in this together rather
Yep.
than have like islands of or pockets of excellence.
Yep.
Trying
And
to,
it's like that thing where the buy-in, you start with one and then like you get
mm,
slowly more people. I think if you're having a whole school approach or you have that whole school, it's like, okay, well, this is our focus and we have seen that this is an area that we want to focus on, then you get everyone else on board with it. But it's
yeah.
starting from that whole school to be like, no, this is important to us and this is why. Has been a real big part of why we have been so successful with change in terms of questioning.
Mm. The fact that you built in time for teachers to you know, think about the professional learning around questioning, but actually let's apply this to our programs. Develop these through line or generative questions for their unit to truly collaboratively design them because it can be hard to think of those for yourself. And
Mm,
I love how you spoke about the role of teachers, but also the role of students in questioning. It's not just the teachers planning great questions, but for students, it can get them excited about their learning. It can help them to check in with how their learning is going because they can keep
yep.
building on their understanding and coming back to that generative question.
Mm,
Um, I think a lot of the teachers and leaders listening now would probably want some resources like the ABC or leaderless discussions. If there's anything that you wouldn't mind sharing that you think would be useful, I think if you wouldn't mind, that would be great.
yep, absolutely can do.
Thank
The good resource is the Harvard Project X
Project Zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, Project Zero. Thank you. The thinking routines and like there's so many different reasons
Mm.
that you can go from there, but that's a really great start. And a lot of those are thinking routines and how to create that culture of thinking within that. So that's definitely where most of them have come from.
Yeah, definitely. If there's any that you've tweaked to make them more John Purchase-y on a slide or anything, I think that, or something on a wall, something that's real and used, I think schools really appreciate
Yeah,
seeing the real stuff
yeah, dude.
in classrooms. Thanks, Kate. Okay, Irene, looking school-wide now, what leadership moves or systems have been instrumental in making differentiated questioning a consistent and sustainable practice across all year levels, especially as part of that broader focus and push for rigorous learning?
Mm. I think even Kate touched on a couple of these things already, and I was like, oh, that's true, Kate. Having that process of working together but understanding our why and having that really clear vision is so important on any initiative or any particular change that you want to implement or see happen within a school. As you've alluded to or mentioned, we are very fortunate to be already sitting in a school that really does value learning, not just for the students, but for our teachers and our exec team as well. So I guess we looked at the process of a spiral of inquiry and thinking about the steps in that and having a think about what's actually happening for our students, what's happening here at John Purchase, and suspending judgment. It's really about that, having a look and going, what can I see, not what do I think I see. Asking those questions, we were really focused on developing a culture of thinking in our classrooms and within our school, as I know Kate mentioned as well. And we've worked with Simon Brooks, amazing, and some work with the project, Ron Rickart's research and Project Zero. But how is questioning activating critical thinking, curiosity, and or metacognition within our school? And how are our students communicating their thinking? So I guess we wanted to be really clear and come together with that shared understanding. And again, it's having that going along that journey together. So it's I'm remembering back to sort of mid last year is that we went through a spiral of and did the actual spiral of inquiry together as an exec team first on sort of like a smaller scale, so that we lived and breathed that process. What does that look like? What might it look like as we you know, it evolves and comes into work with our stages and our stage teams, K to 2, 3 to 6, K to 6. And that was what helped really define and narrow down that clear vision. If you don't have your clear vision or your clear why, you can't really build underneath that. You've got to have a really good understanding of your direction you want to go. It's a little bit like we talk about our learning trajectories here at John Purchase as well. And what do we need? What do we want our student? What do our students need to learn to be at a certain point, like by the end of the term? And then backward mapping that and working out, okay, so where do I start now? Obviously, we've got to use that's data-driven decision making as well. Formative, assessment or summative. We've gathered data by asking questions. So that's that clear vision. I've talked about that professional, high impact professional learning. Okay, so really making sure, we want to value all of our teachers. Our teachers work extremely hard. And we're all here and should be all here for the right reasons, and that's the students at the centre. So with really high impact professional learning, we build capacity amongst our staff, our teams, and then it's that collaborative approach of planning and being able to reflect. And as we know, together we can achieve more, as they say. So from there, it's working through that spiral. Learning was our high impact professional learning, taking that action, implementing, trialing things in the classroom with the support of Kate, our APC, and I, and our deputy principal and principal. So yeah, having a collaboratively planning, having time to reflect, as you then reiterated, Steffi. It's that's really valuable to reflect on what's happening and take time to consider what might be our next steps here at John Purchase. And then it's that monitoring and looking at the systems that are happening and being able to feedback. So it's that cyclical process. I have my fingers waving as I do, but it's thinking, coming back, dipping back in and out, but we're always checking back into what was our clear vision and where did we want to be using our data. With all of that, though, I think it almost authentically just becomes a really safe and supportive environment, because if you're taking everybody along the journey at the same time, it's not a top down, it's about and seeking voice from our staff and our students, because without voice, we're not part of a collective there and that collective efficacy. You mentioned again, I mean, you've got all these different points there, Steffi. There's that recognition and celebration. So some things don't work straight away. It's being able to be comfortable and falling in, stepping or diving, sliding into that learning pit, thinking, oh, that didn't work. I might reach out to Kate and say, look, I tried this in my classroom. I didn't feel like it hit the mark. What do you think? And that talking together really helps to build on our capacity together as professionals and leaders and teachers. And, so that's a really valuable part of, and obviously you're smiling there, Steffi, because that's something that I really value is working together. So that's celebrating what works and what didn't quite work. What might we try next? And yeah, it's like, if it didn't work, if not, why not? So these little leadership moves, I find, were just the things that helped give greater clarity on that purposeful and intentional reason why, that why are we doing it, and the purposeful, intentional questioning techniques, so that we could continue this journey of fostering a consistent and sustainable culture of thinking, where that culture, like that thinking is routine. It's not just we're going to do a routine tomorrow in HSAE, or we're going to, we'll do a maths routine, or we'll do a talk. It becomes really enculturated within our school. So, and we just really believe that with this effective questioning, that's really underpins our ability to ensure that we've got that rigorous learning for all students. And I must say that we also did some high impact learning with Barbara Blackburn. So I will mention that as well. But it's our journey. We're still going, but it's really quite an exciting one. And I can see differences. I can hear changes in how people talk and things like that. So it's certainly, inspires me and gets me excited about coming to work every day.
Yeah. I mean, Irene, thank you for sharing that. There are so many pearls of wisdom that I think schools can gain from that. I can hear a lot around there's just such clear alignment between the quality professional learning at John Purchase and your, leadership practices like spirals of inquiry. Having been part of this leadership team myself, I think one of the strengths at John Purchase is that we had such quality professional learning as leaders.
Mm,
I will give a shout out to our former principal, Leonie Black, who
yeah,
really,
absolutely.
hi Leonie, who really modeled for us, what we could do with our teams and our students.
Mm,
And she helped create that culture, that environment of thinking and learning where questioning and challenge were welcome and mistakes were embraced but learnt from, you know?
yeah, exactly.
And
I, I
yeah.
I might just jump in there. It's that having that belief, we're all on a different journey, but she did and we do with our students, that we're all on that journey, and we have that belief that every student has the capability to and we have the capability of helping to raise the bar.
And I could even hear in your what you were saying a few of the quotes she used to say, if
Is that
not,
why you
why
did?
not?
Yes, that
She'd be
must be where
very
I got it.
proud. Her legacy lives on. Um, she has retired for context, people listening.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but fortunately for her. But I think something else we could learn from what you just shared, Irene, is starting as a leadership team
Mm,
and really thinking what's happening for our students without judgment, which is extremely hard.
yeah.
And then creating that student-focused vision of where you want your students to be and working backwards. I think that's a
Mm.
great um, lesson that we can learn from.
At times it's something I've learnt over the years, and I guess by being part of also the instructional rounds process,
Mm.
about sustaining that judgment and not jumping to, oh, it must be this or it must be that, or why don't we just do this? It's really fine tuning and looking at all of what's happening, stepping back with an open lens. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Irene. So, Kate, coming back to you, when you're observing in classrooms, how do you and your teachers assess if these differentiated questioning strategies are actually impacting student engagement and deeper thinking?
Yeah. Great question. Thanks, Steffi. A thing that we've used at John Purchase that has been really effective is through when we've got a team teacher in there or in a lesson observation. I've sat in the classroom and I've recorded down all of the questions that the teacher has asked. So you almost have to put a time frame on it because if you do an hour lesson, you could end up with 100 plus questions. But let's say for the first 15 minutes or for when the teacher is describing the task or that first 20 minutes through the explicit teaching, you can then record all of the questions that have been asked. And then at the end of that lesson, you then sit down and reflect on it. And within a teacher that I've done this with a couple of times, we kind of categorize what type of questions were being asked. we noticed a lot of procedural questions at the beginning of this lesson. And a lot of the time was actually fixated on like, oh no, don't do that, or go and tuck your chair in, or things like that. So at the end of the reflection in the debrief section, when we were looking at the types of questions that were asked, we kind of reflected on the lesson. Okay, was that the discussion, or was that where we wanted to have the task go to, or the pitch, or that level? And the teacher was then able to then kind of really reflect based on the amount of types of questions that were asked. So based on the types of questions that were asked, we then reflected on the lesson, and then we went and did that survey out. We went and did that cycle kind of again. So let's say in 2 weeks' time, we then looked at and then again wrote down for the first 15 minutes, wrote down all of the different questions that were being asked. And we were able to see the pre and the post sample and the types of questions that were asked. I know with one teacher in particular that we worked on, there was a massive improvement with facilitative questions. So the questions in terms of like, what makes you say that? What else can you do? What might this mean? What are you wondering? So these types of questions were really asking and probing the students to think deeper and not just give a surface level answer. So by comparing the pre and the post questions that they asked once we did that learning in between, we were really able to kind of see the difference in questions, and it was really clearly cut out the types of questions being asked and how that kind of impacted the lesson and the conversations and the discussions around it. So that was a really powerful tool. But again, it comes back down to that time to reflect on the lesson together and really unpack that with the staff that you're working with. Another strategy we've used is filming. So in short films, so whether it be filming the first 20 minutes of the lesson or a section of the lesson, and then the staff member has questions that they have to look for when they go back and watch that lesson. We've also used feedback. So based on that film, we've aligned it with our school improvement plan. So having feedback, and I know you were there when we created, or you created the feedback form against our school improvement plan. So you were able then to see where the next steps needed to come from, and the teacher was able to then reflect on their own lesson based on where our school needs were. We've also done random sampling, so with students. So we've asked like student surveys. So at the end of a lesson, you could choose 5 kids at random, or you could have that pre-planned, maybe person number 1, 5, and 15 on the class list, and ask them questions like, what were you learning today? Was this learning challenging enough? Why not? And then that way you're getting the student voice to see that level of challenge, and you can really cater those questions depending on it. It could have been something more around questioning focus, but that way getting the students' input and their feedback, you're really able to look at the responses and see what they've gotten out of the lesson in comparison to what the teacher wanted to get out of the lesson. So looking at the different types of data and kind of triangulating that essentially to figure out, okay, what I wanted to achieve out of the lesson as a teacher in comparison to what the students actually got out of the lesson. And that kind of really then facilitated that conversation and that work around like, is the learning, is it work or is it learning? So really kind of reflecting on that lesson is this learning environment a learning environment, or is this a working environment? And then that lends that self to, are they just working on this task, or are they actually learning around it? So big conversations came from that, looking at the types of questions and reflecting on what types of questions they had used.
Great. Thanks so much, Kate. I think that's a great way to actually get into classrooms and look at the types of questions we're asking, how it's actually impacting on our students' thinking, learning, and understanding. It's definitely something that doesn't have to take too long. Like you said, 20 minutes, just record the questions you hear, and I think such a simple but powerful way. Do you have any tips for leaders who, maybe are struggling to get into rooms, to do this kind of great stuff with teachers?
Yeah, I think like another step you could do in terms of getting the students to record their own questions as well.
Mm.
So whether that be like getting one of the students to record. So for example, I think of that I can't remember what it's for, the hats, where each person in a group has a different role.
Mm.
And so that if they're working in a group, you have a person who's recording, you have a person who's asking the questions, or you have a person who is facilitating the conversation, but you can put the roles back on the students. And
Mm.
then at the end, you could even have a person who's recording the questions that has been asked. So it's almost like you're trying to get the students involved as to what's happening. But that's one way of trying to get the students more involved. I
Mm.
guess going back to if teachers are or if leaders are struggling to get into the classrooms, if teachers are willing to film themselves for a
Mm.
10-15 minute, whether it be, let's specifically might be a number talk, whether it just be like they're just recording the 10 minutes of the number talk section. So then they can sit back and reflect. And then that way they've both got time to look at that. I'm trying to think what else.
Could
If
I
you come back,
interject?
yeah, absolutely, please do.
Sorry, Stephanie.
Add on.
I'm just thinking, Kate, something that we've done too is like when we come up about, some teachers might be a little bit reluctant, is offering the opportunity for people to come and observe me first. So when I've been leading a team, I feel like I need to walk in the shoes that they're walking in. So yeah, I was just thinking about that as you were talking, Kate,
Mm.
and saying, look, maybe opening it up that way and saying, I'd love you for you to come and have a look at this. And I have actually, I found that it can be quite successful because you're showing that, you're being brave and it's not judgmental and we're just having a look at the data. And
Mm.
then hopefully sometimes there's that, reciprocal approach and they come back to it. Sorry.
And there's been other instances where I've taken the class and then so I've taken a class and then that teacher's gone and watched another a teacher. So it depends on like using the expertise around of different teachers. Like I know we have a stage 3 teacher who's expert in English. So I've taken a year 5 classroom and then they've gone and watched the expert teacher in English. So using what the strengths of other teachers as well. And then I know looking at kind of the assessment data, I know if you're really reflecting on if you that we don't have time to then get into classroom, if that's the issue, then looking at the assessment data, I guess as the whole year level or the grade, and then finding gaps within okay, there's a gap here, or we need an area of need for there. Why is that? And asking those questions. Okay, why is that? Okay, well, what does it look like? What does it sound like in your classroom? What should it feel like? All those types of things. And I think the very first thing is then having that conversation. Well, okay, well, if it's not here, how do we get it to here? What can we do? And having that plan. And it doesn't necessarily be getting into the classroom for a lesson observation. But yeah, tapping into what's around you and the expertise of different teachers, and using that to your advantage.
Thanks so much, Kate. And I think I know from working with you both, the way that you invite people into your classrooms and you allow people to kind of critique you as well and give you feedback, I think is such a great model and example for others. And I think teachers really respect that when we're in it. Our skin is in the game as well, and we're
Mm,
living the reality as well.
mm.
So thank you for sharing that. All right, Irene, beyond the classroom techniques, what shifts in teacher mindset or the overall school culture have you observed since making effective questioning a core focus at John Purchase, particularly in relation to, more rigorous learning from all students?
Mhm. Terrific. Well, the first thing that really comes first and foremost to my mind is that the increased belief in student potential
Mm.
from from us, from staff, from oh, oh wow, having those high expectations. But when I say high expectations, it's about us facilitating and having those differentiated questions ready, to expecting more, but being able to delve deeper for the students to be able to think deeper. So it's thinking that all students have this ability to rise up to this occasion. So the biggest thing I feel like it's those aha moments and the, oh wow, you should have heard Bella's response to, now that's a fictitious name, just so you know. So Bella's response, the excitement you hear and see when the teachers are noticing, they're noticing the positive impact that using these effective, purposeful, differentiated questions have on the learning within their classroom environment. And there's this real buzz, and this raise of excitement where students are asking questions and also challenging. And I say challenging, respectful challenge. It's like, oh, I heard students say, oh, I don't know I'm not sure if I believe that, or I'm wondering if, and there's that respectful challenge back. And so you're noticing really that the students are highly engaged, and wanting to, just challenge that other person's perspective, or maybe it's a problem solving task and they're going, oh, why don't we try it this way? Oh no, I don't think that will work because, and justifying. So you've got all those other things coming through, justifying and analyzing, all of those types of skills that the students are so important for the students to learn. So it's that real shift that's promoting that rigorous learning within the classroom. It's and then I'm not going to say it's like a roller coaster. It's like this moving train or something, because you just start to build, and the momentum increases where you go, oh, we could take it this way. And then there's it links really closely to student agency and our school plan. So thinking about how the shift within our school, knowing that our students are having more of a voice too, because they're part of this learning and asking deeper questions, not just any old question. It's a deeper questions about their learning and why might that be, or what if we did it this way, and things like that. So underpinned, I guess Kate mentioned earlier, those generative questions that we have for some of our different KLAs have helped drive that as well. What else have I really seen a shift in? Just that commitment to continuous improvement and asking questions, leaning in and with Kate, our APC, and I, or other exec, or our DP, or other teachers. You don't have to be holding a leadership position to be collaborating and asking ideas, like Kate mentioned before. The digging in and I guess leaning in on the strengths of others within our school team. So that's been a real a positive impact, watching that continuous improvement. What else? The shared responsibility of learning. We have a strong culture of collaborating together and putting our, designing rigorous learning trajectories and designing learning lessons that are going to really meet the needs of our students. So I guess it's having that shared responsibility, and it's not just about the students in our own class under our own care. It's about every student matters to us at this school, and how we can cater for their needs. We're high potential students with additional needs. What's happening for every student, and knowing our students and where they need to go next. So that shared responsibility is a really a positive impact, and things that I've noticed that have it's just it might be there, but it just raises it's just up leveled, and you just go, oh yeah, that's why we're doing that, and that's the impact we have there. And just that celebration of all the strengths that um, our teaching profession and the staff here at John Purchase bring to to the table. And yes, I mentioned before that we lean in on and have such high quality professional learning. And I agree with you, Steffi, it is so key to having high impact professional learning to underpin the why and why we're doing it, and where's the research, and does the research promote and support what we're doing. So yeah, it's been a positive, wonderful experience, loving the journey. And obviously there's still more to learn, but there always is.
Yeah, this is true. I want to highlight that shift in that lift in the belief of your students. I think that's if that is the shift you've seen, that is huge and should be celebrated. You should be super proud because that is having truly believing and having high expectations of our students. We can say we have high expectations, but I know
Yeah.
that at John Purchase, we believe in the potential of our students, but that's also matched with the high support you provide, the scaffolding as well. I think in developing like your school's culture of thinking, you've also developed a culture of collaboration where you truly, I can hear from both of you today, you're honoring the expertise of the staff at the school, you're focusing on their strengths, and the things that are working well at the school, and you're building on that rather than coming at it from a deficit approach. And you've also developed a culture of learning, continuous learning, for leaders, teachers, and students, which is wonderful. Thanks, Irene, for that.
You're welcome.
And Kate, could you share a brief example of a lesson or a student's learning journey where effective questioning made a significant difference to their progress or understanding?
Yeah. I think when I thought about this question, I thought there was a beautiful example that I worked with a beginning teacher or an early career teacher. And so it was kind of adapted from we've adapted Jim Knight's coaching cycle and the model here. So based off his research, based off your input, Steffi, we've made a coaching model that fits for us at John Purchase. So I think that starts off with you have a check-in, and then it starts off with a lesson observation, and then we film the lesson. And then from that, we kind of unpack it, looking at the student work samples. What do we know? What do we notice? What are we seeing? And we create a goal. And from there, this goal or this example that I'm thinking of, it did go over the whole term. However, there were at least 3 times where we tweaked the goal and worked on different aspects of the goal. So at first, it started with trying to create rigorous lessons or rigorous programs or rigorous tasks. And then it went down to effective questioning. So that was the next kind of segue into that. And then it went into differentiation and adjustable instruction. So from one goal, I guess using the teaching and learning cycle, the way we progressed and the way the teacher progressed and improved, it showed through the work samples and how we could, I guess, reflect and evaluate and then adjust the teaching accordingly. So how that kind of works, like I said, starting with the video, the film, or the lesson observation, creating the goal. We then looked at feedback, reflected on that, and a part of that was looking at the questioning. So a part of the section or one of the lessons was writing down all of the different questions within a 20-minute block. Then from there, we categorized what questions were being most used. We found that most of procedural or review questions were being used. We then looked at, okay, well, what can we do? And we created like posters or types of facilitative or generative questions or constructive questions. And the main ones we wanted to try to use were, what makes you say that? What are you wondering about? What else? And what might that mean? And the reason we did that is because we wanted students to be able to justify their responses. We wanted them to dig deeper. We wanted them to reason. We really wanted them to kind of communicate together to get to the crux of what they were trying to achieve or what the purpose of that their decisions was. So that decision making process. So from there, again, once we did some learning around that, I modeled some lessons within that classroom. I then got the teacher to then go watch some other teachers within the school. We then team taught together and again looked at the work samples, reflected on what's actually been shown in the work samples. And then we did a pre and post, and we saw a dramatic improvement in terms of students being able to, so I'm thinking in math specifically, that they were able to then justify their opinion and give strategies for how to solve that answer. They were then looking at like the working mathematical of being able to communicate and reason and give like supporting claims for what their opinion was. And then so that kind of works that, but then that also related into English. So even though I wasn't within the English lessons there, that teacher was then able to draw the lessons and use what she'd learned and apply that to different KLAs, which was really positive. And that came out through our stage meetings in our CTJs. We're looking at work samples. And I remember there was a beautiful moment. She was like, look, this student did it. And like they weren't doing it before. And we were able to then compare and see how then that student was able to apply it within a reading context. So it was so beautiful. The celebration from the teacher, she was excited to be like, look at this, and you could see the growth and the progression that they had made. But I think it was a testament to how the teaching and learning cycle and the time to go through that coaching and the discussion, which has kind of come out through some of the other questions we've asked today. But I think it's important to have that time to be able to reflect and really prioritize that and prioritize what the goal is for the student and how that the impactful practice can have on not just the teacher but the student as well.
Thanks so much, Kate, for sharing that journey. It sounds like effective coaching to me. Some effective coaching cycles right there.
It was learn from
Um,
the best.
And I love the focus on the students justifying their responses with those strategies for problem solving, looking at the work samples there, to make sure that what we're doing is actually having that impact we want it to have. So thank you. I think there's a lot there that our listeners will, I sound so weird, listeners, that our teachers and leaders viewing will appreciate. So to finish up, I just want to say what really stood out in this conversation for me is that effective questioning isn't just about asking lots of questions or more questions or just getting answers. It's about our students and how they respond, how our students think, how they feel, in within safe, respectful learning environments. We keep coming back to that in this conversation. It's about building a classroom where every student's voice is valued. Every question is like a stepping stone to deeper understanding. Children feel safe and brave enough to explore and share their ideas. And it's clear that your work at John Purchase is deeply intertwined with the school-wide culture of thinking that you're building, ensuring that all students are stretched and supported through rigorous learning opportunities. This conversation has made me think about the consistent and thoughtful school-wide approach you've taken to fostering critical thinking from kindy kids from as young as kindy, valuing the expertise of your staff through meaningful collaboration, supporting your staff to inspire and connect with your students, and celebrating every step of your collective success. So I want to congratulate you on your efforts and say thank you for sharing your journey with so many of us today.